Hi, I'm James Hamilton from Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal, and if you've ever wondered what the heck a CBN grinding wheel is, you've came to the right place. Do you know what I hate? Grinding tools. Even with a slow speed grinder, it can be a noisy, dusty process, and you can very easily ruin a tool by overheating the steel. At least that's the case if you use the regular aluminum oxide wheels. But in recent years, a lot of folks have been switching to CBN wheels for grinding and sharpening. In fact, many of our subscribers at Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal have asked me specifically about CBN wheels. So I thought we'd make this video to answer the most common questions I get. Let's get started. CBN stands for cubic boron nitride. It's a man-made abrasive that's been used in industrial applications for many years. And more recently, the technology's been adapted to smaller grinding wheels for shops like ours. CBN grinding wheels cut steel faster than traditional grinding wheels. They won't overheat your tools, they never need dressing, and they last nearly forever. Regular grinding wheels, whether they be the cheap white ones or the nicer blue and pink ones, are made by mixing abrasive powders with a resin and then pressing it together in a mold. It's virtually impossible to guarantee a consistent density throughout the wheel, so they can be very hard to balance. That's why yours probably vibrates as your grinder comes up to speed. CBN wheels, on the other hand, are machined from a big chunk of metal, so they're consistent throughout and perfectly balanced right out of the box. What's more, they will remain balanced because they don't change shape or size as they wear like regular grinding wheels will. Regular grinding wheels are designed to fracture as you use them. Little particles on the surface break away to expose new sharp ones beneath, but it doesn't always work that way. It's common for them to load up with metal shavings, for the surface to become glazed and stop cutting effectively. To renew them, you have to scrape away some of the outer surface with a dressing tool. This not only wears away your wheel, but it changes the way it cuts, making it effectively coarser. So you sacrifice consistency. The aggressiveness of your wheel is always changing as it goes from a freshly dressed state to a glazed state. A CBN wheel never needs dressing. The particles on the surface are nearly as hard as diamonds. They remain sharp and they don't load up with metal shavings under normal use. This means the wheels don't wear down and the grit remains consistent. This question is related to the tendency of regular grinding wheels to explode. Of course, that doesn't happen all that often, but it does happen because molded wheels are fragile. If you drop it or you bang it into something, if a tool leaves a chip or digs a groove into the surface, a crack can develop there. And when that wheel comes apart at 1700 RPM, an explosion is the only way to describe it. It's one of the reasons why grinders come with big metal covers that encase almost the entire wheel. CBN wheels are not brittle at all. They're solid metal. They won't crack or explode. In fact, you can sharpen on the side of a CBN wheel. You would never want to apply lateral pressure to a regular grinding wheel. That's just asking for trouble. So since I don't have to worry about a CBN wheel exploding on me, I don't have the big metal covers on my grinder. That's a personal decision though. I'm not recommending that you do that. I still have to keep my hands away from the exposed wheels, and I always have to wear safety glasses when I'm working with them. There are several reasons why it takes less time to grind a tool with a CBN wheel as opposed to a standard grinding wheel. For one thing, a CBN wheel is never going to clog or glaze over, so it's always cutting at its peak efficiency. And with a regular wheel, you have to pause frequently to let the tool cool. Depending on the grit you're using, you could spend as much as a quarter or more of your time at the grinder cooling the tool, dipping it in water, and then going back to work. You don't have to do that with the CBN wheel. You can keep the tool on the surface the whole time. Because of these factors, many people say their 180 grit CBN wheel cuts as fast or faster than their old 80 grit grinding wheel, and it leaves a better finish. As a standard grinding wheel begins to wear, the little surface particles become rounded over. This generates a lot of friction and heat. CBN particles stay sharp, so they generate less friction. Some studies have shown that a CBN wheel generates about a fifth of the heat of a common aluminum oxide abrasive. Furthermore, CBN crystals themselves absorb the heat they do generate in a way that other abrasives just can't. They actually carry nearly 70% of the heat away from the tool and quickly dissipate it as the wheel spins. And there's no carbon attraction with CBN as there is with other abrasive like diamond, so no lubricant is needed. This was the biggest selling point for me when I first looked into buying CBN wheels, because with regular grinding wheels, it's very risky to grind right up to the edge of a chisel or a hand plane, where the metal gets really thin, because at that point, it's easy to overheat your tool, and if you do, it's going to ruin the temper and it's going to dull quickly. For this reason, many people leave the edge of their tools a little blunt on the grinder. Then they do extra handwork on a bench stone to finish up their bevel. CBN wheels solve that problem. You can grind the entire bevel right to the sharp edge without fear of overheating. Does this mean you'll never have to dip your tool in water again? Most of the time you won't. If you're aggressively grinding a tool for a very long time, it may eventually begin to overheat. But most routine tool grinding can be done without any water at all. This is a matter of personal preference, but you should keep in mind that since CBN wheels cut so efficiently, you don't need the same grits as you would with the regular grinding wheels. Like I said, a 180 grit CBN wheel will cut about as quickly as an 80 grit aluminum oxide wheel. And because 180 grit leaves an obviously finer surface, you can jump right up from there to a much higher grit than you could from an 80 grit regular wheel. For woodworking tools, like chisels and plane irons, I grind a new bevel or repair a damaged tool with a 180 grit CBN wheel. Then I move up to 600 grit. From there, I'll sharpen with my 1000 grit on my Tormac or a bench stone, and then hone with a leather strop and paste. By the way, you can also get CBN wheels for the Tormac if that's your system of choice. For turning tools, the CBN users I know say they like 180 grit for changing profiles or raising a burr, and 600 grit for a finer edge on a gouge or a skew. Now, what if you can only afford one grit? Well, if you're primarily a woodworker who hones his tools after he grinds them, buy the 600 grit first. If you're primarily a wood turner who uses his tools right from the grinder, get the 180 grit first. You can add another one later on. There really aren't many drawbacks to CBN. Perhaps the price is a drawback. I admit they aren't cheap. But remember, this is a lifetime purchase. They last pretty much forever. So in the long run, they're going to cost much, much less than a bunch of high-quality aluminum oxide wheels. I got mine from Wood Turners Wonders, which is widely known in the turning world for their wide range of high-quality wheels, low prices, and they have lifetime warranties. I also like that they're a small family business. You can talk to the owner personally. I mean, you just don't get that kind of service much these days. Maybe another drawback is they do have a breaking in period. The manufacturing process leaves little particles proud of the surface, and the wheel is going to cut more aggressively until those wear away. That doesn't mean they won't work properly right out of the box. Just don't freak out if your 180 grit wheel seems to eat through the steel fast when you first use it. After a little bit of time, they'll settle into a groove and remain consistent for many, many years. Maybe the only real downside of CBN is you may only use them for hardened steel. You shouldn't sharpen lawnmower blades or grind pieces of flat bar and angle iron on a CBN wheel. If you do a lot of that, you can plug it up and that can be a mess to fix. So don't forget that, and make sure everyone else who has access to your shop knows that too. CBN wheels work great for all your wood turning and woodworking tools, but not for aluminum or mild steel. So now you have the facts. You can make an informed decision. Are CBN grinding wheels right for you? If they are, I put a link in the notes below the video so you can see where I got mine. For more great tips, tricks, and tutorials designed to make you a better woodworker, check out Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal. You can read and subscribe for free at stumpynubs.com.